Man, I hate it when people that I work with leave for another job. It makes me think, what's wrong with us and what we're doing here? And I got to hand it to those people who have those believe in themselves so much that they're willing to put themselves through all that change constantly to get to wherever it is they want to get to. And April Whitson joins us today. This is part 2 about the stay challenge, how to get people to stick around a little longer, make sure you're doing all the right things to ensure that employees want to stick around longer.
Welcome to the Scott Townsend Show, brought to you by Dietzo Man Productions.
Your book's The Stay Challenge. Are you asking us? Are you arguing for the idea to stay? What's wrong with people? What's wrong with people leaving?
Oh, this is a great point. We'll always have people who will leave. You will always have people who will leave, and we shouldn't be afraid of people leaving. Um, but what we don't want to do is where my focus really on the stage challenge, and I toyed with the idea of, I use the term the great stay. In fact, I'm doing a master class next week where I'll be talking about how my number one secret for winning the great stay. And I think so I toy back and forth with the idea of the great stay or the stay challenge. The issue and the reason why I went with the challenge piece, the word challenge in here, is because it really is that challenge around when people go. What emotion do we have as a leader or as an organization when someone leaves? If the emotion that first comes in when a person comes and gives us a resignation letter, if that first emotion that that leader has is anger, disappointment, frustration, then we should be asking ourselves why. Why do we have that type of emotion? Versus if someone gives a resignation letter to you, and your first response as a leader is, I'm so proud of that person. That's very, very different, right? And we should get to a place where really the ultimate solution is that if people are leaving, it's because we gave them opportunities, we grew them, we developed them, we made them.
Yay!
Yes, right.
That's right on the money. Thank you.
Yes.
There you
You're
go.
welcome. Because we don't have enough opportunities for everyone to grow within our own organizations. So, as HR professionals, as leaders in an organization, we need to be able to know we won't have enough opportunities for all of our people to grow potentially at the rate in which they want to grow. Now, can we afford to constantly be growing everyone and everyone leaves? No, we have to continue to find that balance. That is truly the challenge. The challenge really is to find the balance. Some people are not a good fit. So once again, depending on the emotion that the leader has, if
Right.
we can get to a place where every resignation that comes into the organization, um, our leader's first reaction is something more positive. It's either, I think this is the best decision for that person. That
Mhm.
person's values don't match our values. That's
Mhm.
okay,
Right.
right? That person has developed and grown into somebody that into a role that we just don't have available right now. I'm so proud of them because they've been able to take the next step in their career, and roll out the red carpet for them through the exit process. When the opportunity comes that we do have a position in our organization, we want them back.
Mhm.
Right? There's nothing that says they can't go and explore and learn and keep growing to the point where then soon they come back to us, but we have to treat them with respect. We have to treat them like a red carpet kind of process through the exit, and ensure that they're going to feel cared for so much that when the next opportunity inside your organization, or if things don't work out in their new job, that they're the first place they want to come back to is to you because you are a great leader. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome.
it's a balance. It's a challenge to find the balance there, which is kind of the reason why I ended up going with the stay challenge, because it's not really, while I think that it is important that we move away from the great resignation to the great stay, because we had a very huge um, financial loss in most organizations because of the great resignation. It's in the US, the average retention or turnover cost is roughly around $50,000 to $53,000. for one person. And so that's a lot of money that we just lose in totally avoidable costs that just go out the door. So we have to fix the great resignation. We have to get people feeling like they are really excited to come to work and work in an environment that makes them thrive and that they can grow and learn and feel cared for.
Before we continue, the best way to support the Scott Townsend Show is by telling friends, family members, and becoming a patron at patreon.com/the Scott Townsend Show. So, yeah, we have awesome perks, personalized videos, personalized episodes, all kinds of cool stuff at different tier levels. Patreon allows us to do the show full-time, part-time, anytime. So thank you so much for your support.
Hey, this is Heath Black. Really enjoyed coming on the show a few months ago. I wanted to say congrats on your third anniversary. You're nothing if not persistent, so it's no surprise that you've made it here. Congrats and good luck on the next 3 years.
Hey, it's Jason Falls. Scott, I've always enjoyed our conversations and certainly enjoyed the one we had on the Scott Townsend Show. Happy third birthday. Now I know I speak for everyone when I say we're really anxious for you to graduate from diapers and into potty training. Happy third anniversary, sir.
And you're not really talking about gimmicky type things like pool parties and
No.
keg Fridays and
Oh,
whatever.
no.
Uh,
Nothing in my book talks about this will surprise people that I work with probably, but there is not one mention of popcorn Fridays in my book. So anyone who knows the environment that I currently work in now, one of our facilities has popcorn Fridays, and I am a big believer in popcorn Friday. I believe 100% that it is part of the culture
yeah.
in that particular environment, right? But I'm not promoting through the Stay Challenge that leaders need to create popcorn Fridays. I think the culture within an organization needs to have those types of events and those types of activities. But the leader's role, which is what I really focus on, which is the individual leader of that person, their role is really to communicate, communicate, communicate. And then what do you do with the information that you're collecting while you're communicating? So it's about doing something with that information in order to change the team dynamic, the team culture.
Can you out recruit a retention problem?
You know, um, that's a great question. And there's a lot of information right now going around about um, the effectiveness of recruiting in order to improve retention. And there is a huge impact that the leader needs to play on the recruiting process in order to create an environment where the employee will stay. So, but I think more than anything, it's not always about what you can read on a CV, on a resume. Um, and the interview process and getting to know the candidate as intimately as possible is super important, because again, the more you learn about the person, the better you can understand how they're going to fit into the organization that you currently are running. So if you're only paying attention to how great their CV looks and how much technical knowledge they're bringing in, and you're not spending any time really understanding your candidates' behaviors and personalities through the interviewing process, then you ultimately can waste a lot of money, because then you could bring people in, you train them, you spend tons and tons of money to train them, and then they find out it's not a good fit for them, or you find out it's not a good fit with them. And so there has to be a balance that the leaders really take in that interview process to establish a good understanding of how they'll fit into the culture that you have established. We tend to not see that happen very often, Scott. And I think part of the reason why is because we're in a hurry. We tend to, unfortunately, have long turnaround times to hire people. And so the longer the job is open, the more impatient the leader might get. And so the first really strong resume they see, they're ready
Pounce on it.
because yes, because they see how much time is being invested in recruiting and they're just losing patience. And so we've got to get better at that. I think talent acquisition teams really do need to put a little bit more focus on that as well. And the companies that are out doing more assessments during the process, so doing some types of behavioral assessments, even personality assessments to some degree, those companies tend to have a lot better connection with how that candidate is going to fit in their culture. So I recommend, talent acquisition teams look into that type of thing a lot. We talk about it with our talent acquisition team as well, around just what more could we be doing in order to ensure that the cultural fit is there.
And probably at the same time, how to reduce the turnaround time from time
Yes.
of in time of recognizing the need to the time it takes to get their foot in the door.
Yes. Well, again, coming out of the Great Resignation, you just had more. I don't know what the stats would say. I'm sure, plenty of stats out there, but I would say there's the number of talent acquisition employees skyrocketed in 2022. Companies were adding, talent acquisition members, recruiters to their teams like crazy because of the Great Resignation. And so a lot of places have increased their teams, their talent teams, their recruiting teams, but yet the market of people who are, willing and interested in coming to work, it's low. I mean, our unemployment rates are not really that high. And so trying to recruit in a market where people are just not going back to work, for example, like I mentioned, women, that's a big volume of potential candidates out there that are just not interested right now. And so you lost that. And then we had retirees during the pandemic. We had people retiring a little bit earlier than maybe they had originally planned because of the pandemic. And their financial situation allowed them to. So you between losing, women in the workplace, between losing people who decided to go ahead and jump into retirement maybe a little earlier, that's a significant number of people. And then you have, younger generations that, had delays from an education perspective because of the pandemic, that maybe are taking a longer amount of time to get through their 4 or 5 year bachelor's degree program because they might have taken a little bit of time off during the pandemic, or they didn't feel like the education they were getting throughout the pandemic was enough, so they're taking additional classes, right? So you didn't
Right.
have that same volume of people coming out of school as what you had retiring or leaving the workplace. So
You were talking about training a while ago.
mhm.
It reminded me of it's a it's a hilarious quote. It's not real, but someone said it's trying to make a point. The point is, this guy says to his boss, "Why? What if we train all these people and then they leave?" And his boss said, "What if we don't and they stay?"
Exactly. Exactly. It's a problem. It's really a problem. I talk about this story in my book a little bit. And so when I was probably 26 or 27 years old, I would say, yeah, I think it was 27. I was pretty early in my HR career, and I had made an appointment. I was in manufacturing, and I had made an appointment to meet with the general manager in the factory. And this goes into a little bit of the generational differences that people want to talk about today, but in my mind it doesn't have anything to do with the generation, because I'm not a millennial. I'm much older than a millennial or a Gen Z. But even at 27 in my life, at my point in time, I went into the GM's office and I said to him, "I'm going to sit in the big blue chair someday. How do I get there?" And the big blue chair, it's a funny story, was his chair. So he had this big blue chair and people called it the big blue chair in the factory. And so I just told him, like, "I'm going to sit in your chair someday. How do I get there?" And he said to me, when you have more gray hair, we'll talk. And as a 27-year-old young mom, I had children at the time, but young professional who
Yeah.
had big aspirations, that was not the answer for me.
No,
Um,
that's an eternity from now.
I know exactly, right? Although it didn't take long. So I just kind of laughed at that and said, no, really. So what would your recommendation be for me at this point in my career? Where should I start? Like, what should I be focusing on? And he laughed about it. Like, he was not being serious. He's got a great sense of humor. So his response was very comical, and it worked really well. And we went into conversation about things that I should do. To this day, this particular person, shout out Terry Clark, you are still an amazing person that I depend on. This is a guy that I just in the last couple of years, a year and a half ago, I had an opportunity to change jobs, to go to a different company or stay in the company that I'm in now, but with a different job. And both of these hit in the same week. I called him
Oh my
and I said,
gosh.
I don't know what to do. I need some help. So, and that has been, that was 20, I'm aging myself right now. That was 23 years ago. So in 23 years, we have stayed in touch, and he has been a big asset to my being. But he gave me development opportunities. He coached me along the way. He would tell me if he thought things were that the path I was going down was not the right path. He was somebody who I could say, hey, I was thinking about applying to this job. What do you think about it? Or, hey, I want to learn more about this. He was the person who encouraged me to leave HR and go into manufacturing. He said, you need to go experience leading people from all different walks of life. You need to experience what it means to intimately lead a group of people and help and gather them together and get them to follow you with a common purpose. And so I did. I left HR. I went into manufacturing as a supervisor on night shift of all
Mm,
places, right? So
right.
where you don't have a lot of support even, but I did it. I was successful doing that. I had opportunities to continue to grow in my career there because of just little pieces of development opportunities that were given to me. So for me, and I talk a lot about this in the book, like that is what leaders need to be doing. Leaders need to be that mentor or that guide, that coach, that person who's just coaching their employees along and giving them opportunities. There was never a point in time where Terry said, I want you to go do this job. He wasn't somebody who was making a path for me. He was giving me advice on the different places I should focus my learning. He was telling me, go take this class on finance and business. You need to understand operations. You should think about a role in operations, maybe supply chain. He was never making things happen for me. I own my own career, and that was one thing that he definitely was all about. It was like, you own it. I'm just going to give you some advice. I'm going to walk you along a few steps that have worked for me. From a development perspective, I think that is something that if we don't develop our people, they're going to stick around and then the bar never gets raised.
Mm-hmm.
Then we just have this entire workforce that's full of people that are just comfortable doing the same thing day in and day out, and we never grow the business. So we have to
Right.
develop them. And because of his guidance and his mentorship, his ability to invest time in me, I stayed 15 years with that company. I left that company clearly because I'm not there now, but I left that company um, not too long after he left, to be honest. So coming back to, like, people leave leaders, they don't they don't really leave the job, they don't leave for money, they leave leaders. We had a leadership change, and I didn't fit in anymore with the leadership regime and the values of those particular leaders anymore. And so we came to a mutual agreement, and it was best for me to also think about a different path. And I have not had any remorse. It was some of the best decisions I ever made. Moving on, experiencing something else, going to another company, getting those experiences, and continuing to grow and land where I am currently today. And yeah, I sit in a small town in Kansas, if you can believe this. I sit in a small town in Kansas, and I'm a global HR leader. Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that was possible. My husband and I, many years ago, said, oh my goodness, you're not going to be, your career's going to plateau because we're not willing to relocate. You're probably not going to be able to climb the ladder very far. And I was okay with that. Like I made that decision that I was okay with that. And then by just owning my own career and having leaders who cared about me, I've been able to take on a global job from this little house in Kansas.
That's so great.
Toto
Oh,
is down there on the floor. Can you see
oh
Toto?
yeah. There's
It's not
Toto.
Toto, really.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've got my dog right here somewhere. She's asleep behind me. But well, that's great. The story really encapsulates pretty much everything it sounds like that you're trying to bring up in your book, and
Yeah, it's
from a great
really,
personal experience.
yeah, it's just been a, and I mentor and coach a lot of people and try to see them succeed. And my biggest successes now in my life are just to see other people succeed. And sometimes that means they leave the company that we're in. Sometimes it means they promote within the company. Sometimes it means they stay where they are, but they just look forward to coming to work.
That's great. Yeah, can't ask for more than that.
I know.
So if anybody wants more information on April Whitson, what you're doing, what you're up to, where you'll be, and all that stuff, where would
Yeah.
they go?
Yeah, so there's a couple of great places. So my book is going to launch, as we mentioned, sometime later this summer, and so all of you listeners can go out to thestaychallenge.com, and you can download a free checklist that I give away for leaders to use that can help them before the book comes out with what they might need to focus on. And I will also be updating all of my followers with updates on when the book launches as well. So check out thestaychallenge.com. It's the first place. I'm also live on aprilwhitson.com as well.
That's great. Well, it's good catching up, and I wish you all the best with your book and finishing up on the writing and the whole process, and
Yes.
stepping out into this wild, crazy new endeavor you're doing. It's very exciting, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate you having me on. It's been fun talking with you.
Yeah. Well, so for April Whitson, this is Scott Townsend. Thanks for watching, listening to the Scott Townsend Show. Have a great day. Everything's going to be all right. And we'll talk to you later.
The Scott Townsend Show is a Dietzo Man production. For more episodes, visit the Scott Townsend Show YouTube channel, listen on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
The Scott Townsend Show.